so for this came to us, this recommendation to talk about content came to us from Brian Ramey after you got finished talking.
We had a request. We had a request.
Yeah, we had a request. So and I told him, I said, it's always nice when people tell us what to talk about. And feel free, if you want us to talk about something, help us out. You know, say, hey, well, I'd like you guys to talk about that. I think most all of you get the email I send every night. If there's something you want Victor and I to kick around, throw it up here. Make our job easier. If there's something you want me to write about, make my job easier. Feel free to share. If you respond to that email, no one else will see it. I blind copy everybody on it. So if you want to shoot something back in that note, you know, like I get 20, 30 responses most nights, but if you got a topic you think we should cover, serve it up and we'll see what we can do with it. Fair enough? Okay. That'll make our job easier. But back to Brian Ramey's request. So, I mean, almost immediately after you got done with the talk, Brian came up and he was with his wife and he said, I think I got a topic for you guys to talk about. And it was a section where Victor talked about, I guess, kind of the way people worry. Right. And you shared it with everybody. You shared it with the spouses and everybody. And it hit home with a lot of folks. It even hit home with the folks that were hosting the trip, not the Rollins people. You know, because I told you she wanted to have the content on where that study came from. But it's that a lot of the stuff that we worry about never happens. Correct. So I asked you to put together, I'm going to kind of turn this over to you. I'll feed in some Rollins and Orkin stuff, but I'm going to give it to you because it's you know, when you sit there and you listen to it, it's like, oh my God, he's right.
It's a powerful concept.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah. So I'm turning it over to you, man.
All right. So this goes to mindset. So this was part of the presentation. And so I'll go to the slide. I always talk about ABC. Most people think it says always be closing, but I kind of changed it a little bit. It said attitude will drive your behavior, which will drive your consequence. It's a powerful concept because how you think, your attitude will drive whether you'll do something or not, the activity, the behavior. And whether you do that activity or not, that behavior will drive your consequence. But then the key question is, where does attitude come from? Our attitude towards something, like where does it come from? So I tell this story where I had a drip. I didn't want to fix the drip. And here's how the brain works. I didn't want to fix the drip. And I asked myself after the fact, why didn't I want to fix the drip? Because I did fix it immediately afterwards. So here's what happens. I needed to fix some plumbing. That was the trigger. I had a leak in my office space, right? And as soon as I heard the leak, I said, this is how your brain works. It runs to the past to say, okay, what have I done with plumbing in the past? And let's say in my case, I had negative experiences with working with plumbing. And then your brain will then ricochet to the future and predict what's going to happen now. And then it'll come back and say, I don't want to do this. Your attitude is, I'll fix it later. Yeah. So let's pause right here because I think this is important. It's like, Ed, what happens is that immediately, as soon as something happens to you, you're triggered by something, your brain runs to the past, right? And in the past, since if you've had a bad experience, it'll then ricochet to the future, and then you'll predict, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Yeah. So your attitude goes, you just have a bad attitude about something. Like, has that ever happened to you? You're like, as soon as something happens, you're like, ugh.
Here we go again. Here we go again.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. I'm back.
And real quickly, again, what happens, I'm repeating myself, your brain runs to the past. Yeah. Oh God, last time that happened, this. And then it ricochets to the future, goes, okay, this is going to be bad. Yeah. And then you have a bad attitude towards something.
Yeah, and I think when you expounded on that thing, your whole history was, soldering to fix plumbing, right?
Correct.
And that was never easy, right?
Never easy.
And now it's changed, right? So the game's changed. So it's a lot easier to do now.
Much easier.
But you still had that history.
Correct.
Like, oh my God, I'm going to screw this up again. I'm going to make a mess of this. I'm going to end up calling a plumber after I even try to do this, right?
Yes. Everything you just said, yes. All that was in my history, which again, my expectation was things were going to go bad, which gave me a bad attitude, which means I avoided the plumbing. Yeah. As I tell the story, I avoided the plumbing for a while, and then finally I had to address it and fix it. So let's go with one more example here. Let's say I ask somebody to do referrals, right? Yeah. Hey, you need to start asking for referrals. I'm a manager. I tell my salesperson this. I need to start asking for referrals. Now, what might happen is that the person's going to reflect on past referrals and then predict, go back into future expectation, like it's not going to go well. So their attitude is going to be, I hate asking for referrals. I hate doing this, and they won't do it. Yeah. Give me your take on that.
I mean, it happens all the time, right? Boss comes in, he says, hey, we need to get more referrals. I mean, every sales company in the world sucks at getting referrals, right? Right. And we always ask for referrals, but you had a bad experience. You stumbled all over it. Right. But even tying it down even closer for this team, right? For the residential team, like Rack, right? Right. So the manager says, I need you to use Rack more. you know, I need you to get like those guys in Illinois where 71% of their deals are racked, right?
Amazing.
Right? That's the only way they do business. But you've had a bad experience. So maybe you've had a rack decline. So you did the rack close and you spun it out there and it got declined. And so now that's planted, right?
Yes.
So you're hesitant now, right? Is hesitant the right word to use?
Yes.
That you're hesitant to do it again because you fell all over that thing, and it might have even cost you the deal when they got declined.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I ain't doing that unless they tell me they need a payment plan, right? So I think that happens a lot.
So to be clear, so then your attitude towards presenting rack is I don't want to do it.
Yeah. It cost me a deal.
Yeah. So remember, your attitude is I don't want to do it. So your behavior is you don't present it.
Yeah.
The consequence is maybe you don't close as many deals because you didn't use rack.
Yeah.
And that's the ABC.
And that is the only way to explain why 70% of our deals aren't racked. It's the only way I can come up with explaining it. It might be something else. It might be, man, they bowed up on the 22% interest rate, and I didn't handle it. So I think, oh, the boss says I should be closing with rack. Ed says I should be closing with rack. Ed said if I'm not closing 70% with rack, I'm leaving commissions on the table.
Yep.
But man, I botched that when they threw that objection of 22% on.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get around that? I mean, how do we take that past out of our thought process? Because you can't eliminate it.
No. You almost have to like correct it. So, for example, when you jump into your past and then you come into the future, one of the things you have to I do this a lot. I consciously have to ask myself, why am I in a bad mood?
Yeah.
Or why do I have a bad? For example, I think I talked about this. My wife comes to me, right? She says, "Hey, do you want to go out to dinner with the in-laws?" And I'm like, oh, right? I'm like, oh, right? And so what happened? So
bad memory.
Again, here's what happened. My brain ran to the past. Last time we went out to dinner, it didn't go well. And then fast forward, my expectation, it's not going to go well. So somewhere in there, you have to interrupt yourself. Well, maybe this will be different. Yeah. Maybe I need to do things differently. Like maybe I need to have a better attitude when I go there. Maybe I should have and not talk a lot and maybe just ask a lot of questions. In other words, you start telling yourself, how can I make it different or how can I make it better? Yeah. So, and I think about that. When you're doing a presentation to a customer, for example, and you're hesitating because of what happened in the past with rack, you almost have to tell yourself, well, wait a minute. I didn't know how to present back then. Yeah. So maybe I've gotten better at it. Now I have a better response to this objection, so probably I'm better at it. And so it's almost like you have to talk yourself off the ledge to go ahead and try something again and almost like delete the past. And that's hard.
Yeah, and I think maybe you can lean into some of the wins you've had, right?
Correct.
That, you know, because the negative is going to outweigh the positive for the most part until you go back and grab that positive. So, you know, 5 of those deals, they didn't get declined.
Right.
You know, and I might have got business I didn't get.
See, I got to highlight. I don't want to interrupt you, but this is such a good point you're making because I talked about this during the presentation. Is that as humans, we have a tendency to dampen all the good things we do, and then we amplify the negative. And the example I use is like, you ever yell at your kid? You know, that one moment you yell at your kid, right? At the store, you just kind of, you know, you're right there, breaking point. And you'll remember yelling at your child, but you'll almost minimize the 1,000 times, if not more, that you've been kind to this child. Yeah. But you'll remember the negative. And too often, what holds us back is that we focus on when it went wrong. And to your point, we don't remind ourselves of how many times it actually went right.
Yeah. And I think when you get those, when you have that worry, I think you got to do a little introspective and figure it out. Like I'll use like a new product, right?
That's a good way of putting it, by the way.
Like you're spinning a gutter guard. You know, you're spinning a product that's new into your I guess your bag, your sales bag, and you screwed up. No. You know, and the customer's in there, no way I'm doing that. You know, or you just botch it because you don't have the comfort level with it, right? You don't understand it. Your spin probably sucked, right? And you haven't practiced it, so you're going to take that bad experience. When that guy said, heck no, yeah. I'm not buying that. Right. And you relate it to the fact that everybody I talk to about gutter guard is going to feel that same way because you weren't prepared. So maybe you look at that, you say, how can I fix that? Yeah. That in my mind, well, I can get better at spinning that, right? I think that's it.
That's something you have to adjust. You can get better. But I did want to emphasize this stat. This stat was very popular, right?
Yes.
So I want to highlight this. 60, 20, 10, 5%. 60% of what you worry about never comes to pass. 20% of what you worry about is in the past, so why worry about it? 10% of what you worry about, even if it came to pass, will have no impact on you. The remaining 5%, even if it came to pass, would impact you but wouldn't kill you.
Leave that there. And let me
This is powerful.
Let me just talk about the rack decline, right? Put that slide back up, Storm, if you would, please. You get a decline. At the end of the day, it didn't kill you.
Yeah.
It had really no impact. They weren't going to be able to buy it anyway.
Right.
But now you've taken that experience and you've allowed that 5% of worry to jump back into your pitch and your future approaches to different customers.
Absolutely.
Right?
Just look at the 60 to 20%. Those are the two that kill me all the time. 60% of what we worry about never comes to pass. 20% is in the past. That's 80% of the stuff that's in our brain is useless in terms of all these things we have in our that hold us back. And that's why I love that stat. I sent you the link, by the way, to the report.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
The one more thing, I just want to throw one more kind of example in there to kind of bring it home for them. Door knocking. And I'm not talking door knocking like, back in the 80s when my boss, our branch manager, would just drop us off on Saturday morning and say, I'll be back to get you guys at noon, right? And we just had to go street knock the neighborhood. I'm talking about finishing that reinspection. Right? You got to do these re-inspections and just walk in next door. Now, you may have had a horrible experience. My friend Shirley Lacera, she sent me a note on the message, superstar salesman out of South Florida. She got bit by a pit bull in the stomach this week, right?
Oh,
and she's going to be okay, so all that's good. But think about if you had that experience when your boss says, hey, man, I want you to cloverleaf a little bit. And I'm not saying go knock the neighborhood. I'm just saying, hey, go next door. Victor, I just left Mr. Donahue's house and had a hell of a problem with termites. You need to get your house inspected by somebody, even if it's not me, in the next 30 days. So you put a timeline on it and you just walk next door. But what if you had a bad experience where they had the no solicitor sign and the guy come out with a gun and said, get off my porch. Or you got bit by a dog, or you had that hesitation. So now that behavior is preventing you from doing what I think is one of the most basic things we can do as a residential salesperson, just walking next door. They see the dang car with the diamonds on there. The truck just was there last week, doing the service. Everybody wonders what's going on. What if the Orkin Pro showed up and said, but we allow those bad experiences where we get thrown off the porch or, taken to task.
Can I hear your line? I always like your line. What's your line when you go next door? You have a great line.
Just commercially, but it's kind of curious. But the line on residential is just simply, you got to get your house checked. You show up there smiling your tail off, right? You're just knocking on the door. You're looking all sharp in your uniform. I just left Mr. Antonio's place next door. Do yourself a favor. You have to get your home inspected in the next 30 days. I'd be willing to do it. And if now's not a good time, I can certainly come back and reschedule it. But even if it's not me, right? Even if it's not me, get somebody under your house. Get somebody in your attic. Get somebody in your basement. To do this, do yourself a favor.
I still think you could use a commercial variation of your pitch because we've done business, so to speak, with them. We've looked at their house.
Just kind of curious why we aren't doing business yet.
Something like that.
You saw the truck over there, right? Use some humor and have some fun with that. But I think hopefully we did that some justice with Brian. But again, the big number that jumps off is 80% of what we worry about. I wish I could show my wife this. I'm going to try to show it to her, but she won't listen to me because she'll be worried about that I'm trying to do something different. But think about that. Try to walk that around. You guys and gals that are in your offices today with your branches, kick that around. What do we worry about that really never happens?
I'll end up for me on this. We catastrophize. We do. The brain is like a misaligned car sometimes that wants to go left all the time into the ditch. Like when something happens, our first thought is, what could go wrong? We never think about what really can go right. We always go, what could go wrong? And sometimes it's an imagined fear that we have. And sometimes, if we don't check ourselves, I shouldn't say sometimes, you need to say to yourself, am I worrying for no reason? Am I making this up? Am I catastrophizing? I think somebody put in here, replace the negatives with the positives.
There's Bruce.
Absolutely. But it's funny how the brain just leans towards catastrophizing something as opposed to really saying, well, what's the upside? That's the difference.
These folks know I get way too close about sharing stuff I shouldn't with them. But so I'm down here. I've been down here in Atlanta for all week, right? I mean, I came down here Monday and I'm going home tonight at 8:45. But my wife, since I've been down here, has sent me 10 text messages with reports on the measles outbreak in Atlanta. She's a worrier, right? And I get COVID scores all the time. And she said, are you going to test before you come home? Because the babies are going to be around this weekend. And I'm like, what are you talking? I feel fine. She said, and she sends me a report. So before I leave, I got a choice when I land in Cleveland. I'm either going to the cabin because I test negative for COVID, or I'm going to my house in Canfield to be by myself if I'm positive. And I feel perfectly fine. But again, people that worry like that, right? And hope, to be in sales, you really got to try to clear some of that. But we all have it.
Yeah.
We all have that fear.
Yeah.
You know, you even share that when you step to the stage, as many times as you've done it,
Yeah.
you got a little worry. You got little butterflies.
Every time. I think any speaker who says they don't get nervous when they get on stage, something's wrong with them.
Yeah.
You know, because you know what you have to deliver, but at the same time, again, your brain tends to says, well, what if this goes wrong?
Yeah.
What if they don't respond? And you're like, and you got to almost like talk yourself off the ledge. Say, no, it'll go right. We've done this before. And that's that reinforcing piece.
Even your fear of talking to the REC group, not about sales.
Yep.
You were worried about a lot of that. You were worried about me.
Yeah.
You know, all that. You were worried about that.
Yeah.
But you put it past you because you know I got this. I can do this.
Yeah.
So you had.
I run scenarios in my head. I run positive scenarios. Okay, if I do this, and I go, okay, let's do this, let's do this. Even if they respond this way, here's what you can do, go this way. So there's all these little plans I have on stage when I do a 45-minute keynote.
Yeah.
And the same thing could happen in sales. It's almost like, well, if they say this, here's how I bring them back to center. But again, too often we psych ourselves out.
Yes.
Somebody posted in here, I think it's Joe.
Yeah, what do we got in here?
I can't say that. Contrabone says we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. Worry can sabotage too many of them. Yeah, and again, a lot of those, if they were to classify those 60 to 80, if that's how many there are, a lot of them would be, it ain't going to go well.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to go wrong.
Exactly.
So anyway.
Exactly.
You know, work with your brain.
No, pretty cool.
Like I said, align your brain because again, every time, here's a test for today, is that as soon as you have a negative thought, it says, really, is that a real negative thought or am I making a negative thought?
And is it never going to happen? 80% of the time.
And it's never going to happen.
That's crazy. That's crazy.